Yeah, it was super. So over to you. I assume that you'll put a break in between if you wish.
Yeah, we'll get through a certain point and stop, you know.
Yeah, when we see you all dropping asleep, we'll say, right, go for a drink.
We'll go.
Right, Alan, are you going to mute everybody?
Please.
Please.
No,
If you want to ask any,
just
are we
ask,
muted?
We can press the space bar if we want.
Press the space bar and you can ask a question.
If anything's not clear or you want anything a bit more explaining, then just,
shout.
Right. I'm going to mute everybody, so that means, Bob, Mary, you have to unmute yourself, otherwise we won't be able to hear you.
Right,
Okay.
I'm going to share screen.
You should still be able to share it, because you should be able to share it, Bob, and you need to unmute yourself.
You're still muted, Bob.
Okay. Right.
Okay, are you with us now?
Yes,
Yeah.
Bob.
Right, good. So, you might ask the first question, why Peru? Well, after Mary let me go to Egypt, I looked around for another place to go, and we'd always been interested, or I had been interested in the Incas and South American civilization of about the same time, or the beginnings of South American civilization at the same time as the Egyptians, the pyramid building and so on. So we set off. We set off to Peru.
2013.
Yep, 2013.
Why
Why won't
is that
it go?
one?
Won't go.
Oh.
Oh,
Oops.
can't change screen.
Not going.
There we go.
There we go.
I found the right button. So for those of you who don't know much about Peru, which I didn't, I knew it was on the left-hand side of South America. But if you look sort of below the word Peru, you'll see Lima, or Lima district. And that's where we landed. And our journey will take us down the coast, all the way down, almost to a place called Ilo.
Ilo district.
And above it, there's Arequipa. So that's where we set off to first. And then we went up to Puerto Maldonado, which is just above Parque National Madidi.
That's in
Puerto Maldonado.
the Amazon.
Then we went across to Cusco. Then we went to Agua Calientes. And then we came all the way back down to Juliaca, Puno, and that is Lake Titicaca in blue there. So it was in that bottom, third of Peru that we spent all of our time.
Yeah. Can you see my mouse moving?
No, you've just moved.
Yes.
On. Oh, you've gone back, Mary. What are you doing?
Sorry.
Right,
I'll not touch it.
You've gone back.
And again.
Right, so we landed in Lima, and this is not our picture of Lima. I took this one just to show you. I mean, Lima looks like any large capital city in the world almost, with high rise and motorways and cars and so on. And we spent, a day and a half in Lima, was it, Mary?
Not long. I wasn't impressed.
It wasn't that impressive, to be honest. There wasn't anything cultural. But as we left, come back again, it keeps going back. As we left, we went through this poor district, and a third of the people who live in Lima live on the hills. And these are the hills, and you can see what a shanty town it is. The people up there was no running water. They had to wait for the water cart to come. And some of them would have to trek from right up in the top of the mountains down into the centre where the water cart was, and then carry their water back up the hill. So it was quite a shock, really, to see it, having seen that modern city, to see this contrast.
Yeah, we had to drive through here.
It took
hours
well,
to get out.
Well, the thing is, the Pacific Highway goes up through past Lima, And we were going to go down the coast, as you saw on the map, and we thought, oh, this will be okay. A few hours and we'll be down there. What we didn't factor in was it was a Sunday afternoon, and everybody in Lima who can drive or whatever on buses and so on, heads for the coast. And they spend much of the day on the coast. And when they come back, there's so many of them coming back that they close both sides of the highway and allow just traffic coming into Lima to use both sides of the highway. So as we were heading out of Lima, we couldn't get on the highway. So we ended up going about 100 miles through, this is when we got beyond that, but we got 100 miles through people's gardens virtually. We were driving around the back of gardens.
In a dirt track.
On a dirt track,
hours.
parallel to the Pacific Highway, but we just couldn't get on it because there was, well, we weren't allowed on it.
Oh, I've touched
You've
it.
touched another one, yeah.
Well, this is where we
It
headed
is,
up.
it is. But as you go past, what happens? The people who were on the hills living in those poor districts, what the government did with some of them was to give them small plots of land, and they built a house for them, but then it was up to them to develop their land. It was a bit like the Turberries in our area here, where the poor people were given bits of Turberry and said, right, you can develop it, you can keep a cow or a pig or whatever. Well, you can see here, there's not much to develop.
It's not very
It's
fertile.
all this light grey sand, light brown sand, all the way. Apart from when you get to, Mary's having the mouse.
It could go all wrong.
You could go back. Apart from when you get to where we were staying. You can have a go at that one.
What do you want me to say?
Oh, okay, I'll carry. Well, this is La Hacienda, and the contrast between where we were travelling, and you can see that in the distance there, you see that grey sand out there still, the contrast between that and where we were with lush green grass and water and swimming pools and so on, it's like you find in many of these countries, third world countries, where the tourists live in luxury and the rest of the country outside is just inhospitable almost.
The little arrow keeps
Yeah.
disappearing.
So no, that's it. So we just spent a couple of days here, just recovering from the flight and the journey down. And what I'd wanted to do was go to the Galapagos, but it was expensive. It was a long distance, and
It nearly tripled.
it would nearly double our holiday allowance. So what we decided to go to was the islands just off here, which were called the Ballestas Islands. Again. No, yeah. Right, so we went to the Ballestas Islands, which was supposed to be Peru's equivalent of the Galapagos. Not.
Not really.
Anyway, this is on the way. This is a brown pelican. All the photographs taken by Mary, and we didn't go on a photographic holiday, did we?
No.
We went on a
sadly.
holiday and took some photographs at that time.
Yeah, this is 2013, so I wish, I'd
Yeah,
got the camera I've
like
got now.
It's like with these people who take photographs and wish they could go back. I think that's where certainly Mary is, isn't it?
7 years ago.
So this is a brown pelican that flew past the lots of these around, and we on the hills, on the sandy hills, was this candelabra, which is candelabra, and it was done by the ancients, and it was dug out in the sand down to the rock, and because there's very little wind, the sand doesn't blow back, and it leaves this. Now this is massive,
It's about 1 metre deep, apparently.
but it's massive. It's from the bottom of the hill right to the very top, and nobody knows why it's there or what purpose it serves. They think it might have been a sign for shipping at one point, boats that were out at sea, a sign for them to find their way back in. But it could be anything. And this is the thing about Peru. There's lots of things there that have just disappeared into the mists of time. And the civilization that made them must have been quite advanced. Anyway, are you going to carry on, or do you want me to carry on?
Well, it's pretty explanatory.
It's pretty
isn't it?
explanatory. It is a Humboldt penguin, obviously. The Humboldt current goes all the way up the left-hand side of South America and so on. and these penguins move along up with the current as the fish move up.
So we're on a fairly small boat at this point,
Rocking.
going out, fair way out to sea as it happens. And actually, I realised once I got back that I'd got salt water in my camera. Had to go away for about a month when I got back.
These are beautiful birds. Inca tern. They're like, just like terns. They flit and fly. The wing beats are very quick. This is a male down the bottom with the darker wings. But I would like to get a picture of one of these, a better picture of one of these, because we know we didn't take the best pictures. But out on the islands, as you get to the Ballestas Islands, they are covered in sea lion. Absolutely, seals and sea lion, but mainly sea lion. And they're what's called, you're going a bit quick.
Sorry.
They're what's
I
called,
thought there was another one.
they're what's called guano islands. And obviously, you know what guano is, and you can smell you're getting close to them because there's this pungent smell as your boat is nearing the islands.
Yeah.
This is a neotropic cormorant. It's really called a Guayano cormorant, but I couldn't spell that. So it's a neotropic cormorant,
It looks as though he's got a full gullet.
with a white front and a dark greyish bill.
Bit different to our cormorants.
Yeah.
This is a booby, a Peruvian booby. You can get all sorts of different boobies, can't you? There's blue-footed boobies and all sorts. But anyway, I think this was a young one. Oh no, the young ones.
It's a male.
It's a male.
Yeah, the females are in the background. The males have
they
got
were the
white
young
heads.
ones.
No, they're the females.
Okay. Yeah, we did
They
see
got white
quite a
heads.
few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were flying around quite wide wingspan and so on. But here we're back with the seals again.
I thought
And
that was the one that was
sea lions and seals, and it was an absolute riot of noise and fishy smell. You know, they're all living on top of each other. How they managed to carry on like that, living with so close proximity. But you can see sort of middle left, there's a massive bull sea lion, dark brown on the
There's some
front
quite
there.
small ones in
And
as
then
well.
some smaller females.
The area they're on is quite narrow because it's very steep cliffs with just a very small shingle beach. Yeah, I quite like this shot. You can see it's quite choppy. I was hanging on to my breakfast, but I think these are the birds you can see just flying. There's 2 or 3 down there that are just flying about.
Well, the thing about it was that the sea changed colour, and you can see that it's a much darker greeny colour here, and then out between the 2 arches, it's not quite as choppy, and then even beyond that, it's flatter still. So as the tide came in, it would hit these rocks and it would cause it to froth up and increase the wave strength a bit more. So here we are again with the brown pelicans sitting all in a bunch. Right, now,
Yeah, this is me.
leave this one on. This is a long story, if you can bear to stay with
it's
it.
not that long.
All right.
We'll gloss over it.
I don't know if any of you know about the Nazca lines, but it's something that way back in the 70s I started reading about. And
Chariots of the Gods.
well, it was a book called Chariots of the Gods, written by, it was one of these theories that spacemen came to the Earth long, long ago and left their mark. And one of their areas were the plains of Nazca.
Which you'll see in a minute.
Which you'll see in a minute. But it was a light aircraft with 10 people on it. And I was going, but I didn't want to go on my own. I didn't want to leave Mary behind for about 4 hours.
I wanted to go somewhere else and photograph griffin vultures. But no, it's a once in a lifetime trick, and you can see me. This is me. I don't do flying. I hate flying. And this little aeroplane, did nothing for me.
Well, in the end, I talked her into it. And I said, come on, you'll never see this again. And the only way you can see the plains of Nazca really are from the air. So had I known what I know now, then I probably wouldn't have gone myself. But I'll tell you that when we get back. So here we are waiting to go. Mary's obviously under the shade of the wing because it was quite warm, as you can see. And the guy stood with his hands by his side, the pilot there, he was quite kind in the end,
It
wasn't he?
was, yes,
Yeah.
he was trying to
So
help me.
anyway, 10 people. Mary got up behind the pilot.
That was our seats.
Well, she was up behind the pilot.
It was like
certainly.
one down each side, so it was like two in a row. I was on one side, then the corridor, then Bob.
And there were a group of others, some Japanese,
About 8
or
of us.
Chinese, they
I know what you're moaning about, Mary. That's quite a big one.
So when you get up in the air and when you get flying over, you look down. I mean, it's a 30-minute flight out there, and it was a lovely flight
That was
out there.
okay. I
Nice
was
and
okay
flat.
with that.
Nice and flat. Now I thought, oh, we're all right here. But when you get over the plains, over the flat land, you see these geoglyphs, I think they call them. They're shapes in the sand or in the grey dust, a bit like a moon landscape. And these are etched out. They're quite deep, and they're etched out in this sandy surface. But the only way you can see them is from above. So the question is, who made, well, what kind of society or how advanced was a society that could envisage this from the ground so that it looked right from the air? And this was all the premise of they must have been done by space people and so on. That was all the story of the book and so on. But anyway, this one is the hummingbird. There are loads of them across, and I'm not going to bore you with all of them. This one is harder to see, but it's a monkey. You can see its head's down, its tail's in a circle, in a spiral.
And there are two arms coming out.
Two arms out the front and feet out the back. And you can just see in the top right corner one of the engines of the aeroplane there. And it was lovely. I was absolutely gobsmacked. And I kept saying to Mary, just look at that. That's a hummingbird. Look at that. That's a dragon. And Mary never saw anything.
No, I threw the camera at him at that point.
I took this
I was
picture.
very ill.
She just went into a green state, put her head down, and although she was quite bad, the pilot ended up giving him some kind of morphine or something.
It wasn't morphine.
He dipped it into some
I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know to
cotton
smell
wool.
it or suck it or...
stuff it in your mouth or whatever. But she wasn't the worst because there were 10 people on the plane.
It was only Bob, not sick.
And there was only me who actually saw the plains of Nazca. But the terrible thing, I mean, you can see there's all these other shapes, these sort of thin rectangles, runways, and that was the premise behind this landing strip for the gods and so on, that they use these as runways, and then they parked in little bays where the animals were etched. But the unfortunate thing about this, a site of a UNESCO site, but the unfortunate thing is they built the Pacific Highway right slap back and across the middle of the plains of Nazca.
So you can see the cars.
So you can see the cars and the
And the
lorries
trucks.
moving on the Pan American Highway. So it was quite upsetting, really. And just a minute, we've got to get back yet.
Oh, sorry.
So when we got back, this would be some years later, I was reading about, the flights out, and apparently 1 in 5 flights experiences serious difficulties. So maybe we were lucky that day just to get away with Mary feeling a bit upset.
It's the fact that they want everybody to see it. So everybody on one side of the plane sees it, then he does a quick swoop round and goes down and up and goes over it the other way.
If you've ever seen a child with an airplane in their hand playing zoom round like that,
yeah,
that was what it was like. You did get thrown about. It was like being on a roller coaster. So anyway.
So there's Nazca.
Yeah, so we'd come back from Arequipa, where we were. We'd come up the Pan American Highway on the left, the 1S, and then we've come to Nazca, and the planes are in that sort of section above where the word Nazca is. And then we're going to
Puerto Maldonado. This is the Amazon. So, yeah, here we go, on the Madre de Dios.
It means the Mother of God.
Yeah, and this is gold diggers. Digging for gold. They put it in a chute and it gets washed and they get little bits of gold out. And there were quite a lot of these. I wasn't that keen on the Amazon. It was absolutely massive. You could hardly see to the other side of it. We had a plane ride here, didn't we?
Oh,
It wasn't that near.
Yeah, we
So
flew
we had
to
a
it.
plane ride here, and then we had to get on a boat then, a fairly small boat, which you'll see in a minute. Oh, this is, yeah.
So
Bananas.
this is moving up and down the Madre del Dios, just as the, what the people are doing, and bananas.
Right, so they're moving bananas about. I think there's a picture of, this is a sort of boat we were on, and when you think you could hardly see the other side of the river, and in the river it was deep, it was yellow, there were eddies everywhere, and the man who was driving the boat took great delight in telling us that they get really large trees in there, and sometimes the boats overturn.
And there are crocodiles.
Oh, and crocodiles, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're not, you know.
So you can see it was a smallish boat. There's only 2 or 3 of us on it, and we were going down through the, I say villages. There were little settlements on either
Yeah,
side, just
on the
shanty living, just living off the land. Don't go too quick.
Oh, sorry. Right, so these are the boats that we
These are the
I think
boats.
that's Bob there.
That's me moving towards one of the boats. Yeah, you can see they're quite padded and so on inside. I mean, and shaded from the sun and so on. And even if it rains, they've got these plastic screens that come down. So it wasn't the boats that were the problem. It was the things in the water that the boats might hit that were the problem. We actually went on this. This is a visit we went on to down the river to an internal lake.
We'll show that in a minute.
Yeah, and there were some Australian people as well, and they didn't want to go to the lake, and so they stayed on the boat and they went somewhere else. And they must have come back well in before we were due to arrive back, because our guide, he said, "Oh, plenty time, no problem." And when we got back, these Aussies had been waiting for 2 hours for us to get back.
Weren't happy.
Well, they weren't happy. She was absolutely violent. She was all fit for hitting one of us. Anyway, we stayed at this place called Incatera, and this was the cabins that we had, and these hardwood tree circles were your steps into to your cabins, and again it was not luxury, but it was well up in, there were hammocks and the screens on the bed and a shower and so on. So although you were in sort of the bottom end of the Amazon and it was quite hot and sticky, and you went out at night more than you went out in the day usually, it was more than palatable. I don't know what these are. Mary took these.
No, I don't know.
They were just some of the flowers in the gardens of the place that we stayed.
It was very lush. It was very hot. It was very humid. Lots of water.
Lots of rain at times as well.
So
Hibiscus?
I think that's a hibiscus.
Is a hibiscus.
That's correct. It's a hibiscus.
Yeah, they were all over where the place where we stayed. It was beautifully kept. Now this is the walk. This was actually on Valentine's Day, and we took the boat that you saw before, and we went about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour down this massive Amazon River, and then we had to trek in wellies and through a sort of ankle-deep mud, carrying cameras and things, until we got to this lake.
Well, we got to this little place where this man was waiting. I mean, they must have had a radio connection or something, because whenever we rolled up somewhere, there was a man stood there saying, waiting. "You with me," or whatever. So he was waiting, and it was the middle of nowhere, wasn't it? Yeah. Really was. We were the only people there.
It was just the guide and us two.
So he then took us out on the lake. And as we went down the lake, he pointed out these trees with these bats that were resting in the daytime on the trunks of these trees.
They'd be one of the night things, wouldn't they? We saw some amazing birds. This was on the trek down. I think there's another one.
Ivan, you've got one of these pictures. I think it's a blue and yellow macaw, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there's another picture of that. Oh, you can see there's quite a few. There's at least 2 more on the side there.
What they do is they sit on the top of trees that have been broken, and then the rain sits in or gets into the tops of those trees,
and that's where they
get that's where they drink from.
Yeah, we were way down on the floor of the forest, so I was quite pleased with that shot, really.
You're just a bit
Not
faded
that
out
it's-
on the head.
Not that it's ever done any good.
This creature is called, I don't know if it's An or A, it's called Hoatzin. That's Hoatzin. And it's like a punk chicken almost. There's that red eye and that sort of flared comb and so on. And the colours were absolutely, I mean, they weren't rare. They're not
No,
a
there were
rare
lots,
bird.
yeah.
There were lots of them flying around and settling on branches that were fairly close to where we were.
Yeah, so we were actually on a little little rowing boat at this point,
We
just rowing around this lake.
Like little creeks and things, yeah. So there's
another one.
probably that's a female because she hasn't got the reddish eye,
She's not quite as
and she's not
bright.
quite as bright and colourful. So I think that's a female, but weird looking bird.
As is this.
Well, it's a ladder-tailed nightjar. This, and
We got quite close to
we
that.
got
It
close
never
to it as
shifted,
well.
did it?
Yeah,
It didn't move.
I presume it's called ladder tail because the tail has got like bars that run down beneath that branch there. So I'm assuming that's why it's called that. Nightjars tend not to sit in trees in our country. They sit in the ground under bracken and so on. But
It's quite good to see one set out, wasn't it?
each to their own, I suppose. These are capped herons.
Really pretty bad.
We didn't get close to them. They're like all
They
herons.
just
They
flew.
just know you're there and they're off before you. He's just getting ready to go, that one at the front, and they're off before you've hardly got the camera up. But quite striking bird.
Pretty.
What number are we on?
Oh, this is a real
This
rarity.
is a real rarity. This one, we were lucky to get this one.
Well, this was actually, Bob went with our guide, and he actually went way up on this tower and then walked through this, through the canopy. I got up the tower, but the trackways that you were on up there, there were like planks missing and ropes missing. I went back down again, but Bob went across it and he saw this, what's it called?
It's called a Spix's guan, and you only get fleeting glimpses of them. In fact, the guide who I was with in the trees, he hadn't seen one for several years. So
He was quite excited.
he was quite excited. He actually wanted. I had a Peruvian bird book with me, a new one we bought, and he wanted to swap his old one for mine when I left because he said that I would never use mine again, which is probably right. But I didn't because I was ticking off the ones I'd seen in the book, so I didn't want to lose that. Anyway, Spix's guan. This is Mary. This is what Mary saw. I mean, we've obviously seen worse than this in some countries. You know, you've seen up to 8 on a motorbike. But again, it's a bit like India, a bit like Taiwan, not Taiwan, a bit like Indonesia and Thailand. Motorbikes rule in some of these places, and if you can get as many of the family on the motorbike as you possibly can, and this one they've got 4 on, but you know, it's. We would need a family car to be doing what they're doing, but they just get on the motorbike and get in.
Right, health and safety was.
Health and safety. Well, I mean, you have a nightmare. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to Machu Picchu, which is right at the end of the on the left-hand side on my screen. Anyway, we're going to get to there, and then we'll pause.
Right.
So after we'd been to Puerto Maldonado, we then came down to Cusco. And you can see Cusco in the bottom here. Cusco is the ancient capital, the Inca capital, really, of Peru. And what we're then going to do is we're going to do the journey from Cusco up to Pisac. And then we're going to go along the road following the mighty Urubamba River, which is this blue line. We're going to follow that to Urubamba itself, which I think is where Mary was quite ill again. No, not ill. That's not right.
It was a good trip,
It was a good trip. But we'll get to Urubamba in a bit. And then we go on to Ollantaytambo. and then we end up at well, it's not on here, but it's called
Machu Caliente.
Agua Calientes, which is at the base of Machu Picchu.
You can see the little mountains as you're going along, and it's quite high, which was the cause of the
One of the things
slight
that
indisposition.
one of the things that you can do is you travel down it's called the Sacred Valley because there's obviously lots of sites where Inca temples and so on are. But you get to Ollantaytambo, and then you can get off your car and you can get onto the Inca Trail and walk it. And it takes 3 days to walk the Inca Trail, but you actually come into Machu Picchu through what's called the Sun Gate. And it's quite a dramatic entrance.
Yeah, we
Now,
didn't do that.
we didn't do that, but having seen it, and we just stood on it for a while and looked at it, but having seen it, I had a whole different way of looking at my daughter, because Catherine and Graham, they went here and they went on the Inca Trail. They spent 3 days on the Inca Trail, camping on it, and then moving on the next day. And when I saw it, I thought, wow,
Never.
if Catherine can do that, I never thought she could.
Yeah.
Right, so we're at Cusco. Cusco sits in this enormous bowl, but they've actually started to move up the hillsides as well. It reminded me of the bowl, reminded me of Grasmere, just this people living in this amphitheatre that was all around. Great, the red tile roofs everywhere, because the pan tile type roofs and so on, and quite what's the word, structured in its layout. It looks quite
Square lines.
yeah, it looks quite higgledy-piggledy in places, but the layout of the roads and so on was really, for an old place, was really sort of Roman almost in its layout. And that's a bit closer.
A different view of Cusco. This our travel company, Trailfinders, planned this way of doing it because you start in Cusco at the lowest elevation, which is still quite high. And as you go down the Sacred Valley, it gets higher and higher and higher, which hopefully acclimatizes you to the altitude.
You can just see in the middle here.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to go back?
Well, no, it's all right.
I don't know if I can.
I was going to say, but our hotel. We were looking from the hotel we were in, looking down onto the piazza or whatever it was called, and there was old temples and so on. But again, it belies the fact that when you look at it, you think it looks really quite a decrepit place, but it's a bit like places in Italy. When you get among them and you see the architecture and the interest and so on, you forget about it being ancient almost and just marveling what it is.
It was a nice place to just wander.
It was
around.
a nice place to wander out, but you wouldn't wander about after 8 o'clock.
No.
Right, so we've come out of Cusco, up the hills, and this place is an Inca fortress, and it's called Sacsayhuaman. But our guide here, who stood with me, he calls it, "You be sexy human soon, you be sexy human." And it was his little joke. But these rocks, if you look at them, they're all different sizes, but they all fit together. And they fit so well together that I couldn't get a credit card in the gaps between the rocks.
Really clever.
They're manufactured or they're sculpted to the point where they just sit bang against each other. And if you look along the bottom, they don't sit on a dead level bottom. There's some that dig into the rocks at the bottom, and then they go higher and so on. So it's all been sculpted around the shape of the stone as much as shaping the stone itself. Amazing. I could have stayed here longer because again, from here you'll get that view down into Cusco as well. But
it's amazed me how they actually shifted the stone.
This was just part of the wall that was left standing. And there's another part of it, these big lintels. Again, you've got to think, it's a bit like the ones at Stonehenge. How did they get them up there? How did these primitive people manage to create something that was so precise. You can see the creases and joins in the rocks here. You can see that there's hardly a space. They just sit all together. No cement or anything. Okay, do you want to talk about,
Well,
this is going up the Sacred Valley now.
yeah, I don't know where this place was, just somewhere we stopped off. And this is what a lot of the people who lived there did. They just bring their wares, they put them down the side of the pathways and sell whatever to the tourists, I suppose.
But you can see by the guide, this is the guy in the white shirt with us again, he said, oh, we'll go this way. So we go up this windy path and windy road in the car that we were in, and suddenly we come across this, and he goes, oh, they sell at market. Now, no, they don't. He knows, or they know, that he's going to bring tourists that way. So they've got all their stuff out in preparation for it. And you would like to buy, but you just don't want so much room in your suitcase.
Yeah, not only that, it's all very much the same. It did take us to a fantastic warehouse place where I did buy 2 or 3 things, actually.
She bought a carpet in China, by the way. She bought a carpet. Would you believe it?
It's only a little
I had to
carpet.
carry a carpet all the way through China. Anyway, so we stayed. This is it Urubamba or Ollantaytambo? Ollantaytambo, I think.
Ollantaytambo.
But we stayed in this. Well, it was like a home, really. It was a person's home, and there was at the side of it there was an apartment, and we stayed in the apartment. And the gardens had these hummingbirds flitting around, right, left, and centre. Wherever you looked, there were hummingbirds coming in, going out, and so on.
It was beautiful.
But, and there is a but.
Now,
Well, this was it. This was what it was like, gardens and so on.
so we're getting a bit higher here, and this is where I had my introduction into coca tea, which I found out afterwards is cocaine. The altitude was beginning to get me, and I was sat up in bed thinking, I can't breathe. So Bob had to go down to the reception where they had boiled water on tap and the coca leaves, and you made tea and you drank the coca tea.
She was hooked. She was, I honestly,
It certainly calms you down.
4 o'clock in the morning, I need some coca tea. You know, I thought
You've never been the same since.
oh, I thought,
True.
I thought she was never going to come down from it.
Was that Ivan?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So,
Yeah, so it was a beautiful place, but yeah,
But
we
it
were
was,
getting higher. In fact, I acclimatized relatively easily after that, but some of the people we met on our journeys had a real trouble.
yeah,
the
we'll tell them about that in a minute.
The buses and the taxis all had to have oxygen in them, and some
Every-
people were on oxygen a lot.
Every public vehicle had to have an oxygen cylinder.
Have I gone back?
you got it
I'm
wrong.
sorry. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm going the wrong
Seen
way.
that bird twice. You need to go
Yeah,
to-
on that one.
But you can see we're in the clouds almost.
Yeah.
Right? I know this is not everyone's cup of tea, but these were building plots. These are burial plots where you rented the spot of ground, or they rented the spot of ground, and then they built their own mausoleum, I suppose, mini mausoleum.
These here, they're quite big, aren't they?
Yes.
But you look at the purple ones at the
Yeah.
end, they're not
They were
quite
just sort
so
of the ordinary
swish.
come or garden ones. Those they were just holes in the structured holes with just some stone thrown in the front of it.
Mm.
But these are obviously, I would think, were family tombs. There's probably on the right. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buried in that one. In the one on the right with the white front. So I was quite interested in that, but I don't think Mary was. Right, Mary
Right.
can tell you this one.
Yeah, now this was, the guide took us into some cottages where people were living. Sadly, it's not as sharp as I would have liked, but you can see they breed lots of guinea pigs. Now, if you're of a nervous disposition,
Look away.
I wouldn't watch the next couple of slides because
You had to pick out the one that you wanted, and I thought, oh,
they do eat them.
but then they barbecue them for you.
They barbecue them with herbs in, and
It's supposed to taste like pig. We didn't have any. I was adamant I wasn't going to have
No.
one.
But they were
uh,
selling them all the way down the streets, you
yeah.
know, for people to buy. This is
So
our guide.
he's offering me. He says, "Go on, you have a bite of that one," but I couldn't.
No.
I just couldn't bring myself. Not only could I not, if it cut the meat off, maybe I'd have closed my eyes and eaten it. But
Yeah,
seeing that
not
thing
nice.
coming towards you with its little paws up in the air, I don't know.
I think some of you might have seen the two little girls.
Piece of
This is at Pisac, and we were there on market day. And as you can see, it's extremely colourful. The little girls with the puppy, it's cross my palm with silver and take my photograph.
Yeah,
You'll see quite a lot of that. But they are very, very attractive, and yeah, always happy to have their photograph
but
taken.
they seem to have this tourist smile. You know, you talk to them and then you say, "Well, can we take your picture?" And suddenly, click, it's like putting a switch, and
Yeah.
they go into this grin, this sort of, you know, quite attractive little grin that they give you, and they keep it fixed. So these people here, some of these women had come, started off at 4 o'clock in the mountains, and they brought their produce down into the market.
Just grains.
They travelled 10, 15 miles with it to sell it in the market. But again, you know, if you want Peruvian stuff or you like it, you could load up for virtually nothing. Some of the stuff here was really, really cheap.
But it's all very much the same.
Yeah, once you've got one, I suppose you've got the rest. And then this old lady, well, I say old lady, she probably wasn't that old, but she hadn't had a wash for months, years probably. You can see her hands, it's ingrained dirt on her face as well.
But again, you know, they just wanted...
She was just offering these plants, these herbs that she'd brought to market to sell. Probably picked them up wild in the countryside and wandered into the market just to try and earn a few pesetas. And this man was blind.
Yeah, it says on his thing that he's blind, but it was very it's lovely music.
Yeah, yeah.
A little bit more of the...
I mean, you can see the fruit in the back and so on. It was all freshly brought in. This was a family. I think there was a mother obviously on the right picture, which she's translated into the other one, because when they see you taking a picture of a couple of people, suddenly they all shuffle into the picture for you. So again, it was just a few coins, and we'll do you a family shot. Traveling through the Sacred Valley, you find on either side, but on this side in particular here, you find these wonderful lines of terrace where when it's a growing season, they grow the crops. But you can see again in the distance, it's not rain in the distance, it's just low cloud. We're about 19,000 feet up. So we're nearly at Machu Picchu, and we'll stop
But you
before
can
we
see
get
the
there.
terraces, and that's,
Yeah.
that's what Machu Picchu is like. It's the terraces.
Yeah. So this is the mighty Urubamba. It's not my best not our best picture of it. It's a river that flows through the Sacred Valley extremely quickly. I've never seen a river flow so fast for that size. I've seen small streams running quickly, but this one, the roar of the noise and its glacial melt, just that it comes rattling down, and eventually it finds its way into the Amazon as well. But it was just a boiling mess and mass of water. So here we are at Agua Calientes.
This is the base of where you go up to now. We didn't walk. We said we didn't walk the Inca Trail. We came on a train, which was really nice. Which I think there's a photograph of that in a minute. So, but you actually end up at this place, Agua Calientes.
Yeah, which means warm water or hot water.
And now we had to get a bus to get up to the top where Machu Picchu is.
Well,
there's the train coming
that's the
along
train
down
we came
there.
following the Urubamba down. Then at the back of the train there was the Vista Dome coach, which if you paid a bit extra, they let you go in. We're going to stop here now. We're
Oh,
gonna
are we
stop.
not going to? Oh, okay.
No, we'll stop now.
Right,
for
so this,
20 past.
would you believe this is from Machu Picchu, looking down the road where the bus has to get up, and you can see it's a bit of a switchback. There were some pretty hairy turns on it.
Well, in some cases, he had to do 3 and 4 point turns to get
Yeah.
the bus round the corner.
Yeah, so it was a bit hairy, but
It took over 40 minutes to get from the river down the bottom there, up the road to the top, to the hotel that we were staying at, because we managed to get a hotel, 20 yards from the entrance to Machu Picchu.
yeah, it was owned by
It's
Orient Express.
The Orient Express Company, one of
It
their
was
hotels.
fantastic. I would recommend it because we actually got in on the second day before anybody else
Yeah,
was there.
you don't want to be getting in after 10 o'clock
It's packed.
because they just swamp you.
Anyway, we'll leave that there and then come on to Machu Picchu when we come back. So it's
10
20
minutes.
past 8. So if that's okay, we'll come back at 30:30 to
Yeah.
finish off the rest of the
I
trip.
mean, you can have a drink, have a talk or whatever. You can unmute them, Alan. And
Machu Picchu.
right. Well, as I said, I mean, this was the one thing not the one thing, but this was the jewel in my crown. Because we'd learned about it at school, I think we'd all heard about Machu Picchu and whatever have you. Not discovered until the early 1900s, I think, by an American explorer called Hiram Bingham. And one of the trains that runs along the bottom of the valley, not the one we came on, but one of those, is called the Hiram Bingham after him. The Incas hid up here in Machu Picchu when the Spanish came to conquer South America, and the Spanish never found it. It was built during the time of an Inca emperor called Pachacutec.
No, I didn't do that.
Can't spell it.
I think
Pachacutec, that's it. Pachacutec. Right, so it changed. So everybody thinks you're looking at this mountain in front of you, and that's the mountain of Machu Picchu. It's not. The mountain of Machu Picchu is behind you, and you have to go to the other end of the settlement to look back and see it. This is called Huayna Picchu, and it means big mountain. Machu Picchu means small mountain, Huayna Picchu means big mountain, but it's the classic shot of looking at it across the terraces and out into the Andes here.
So yeah, we're quite high up now. We're about 20,000 feet, are we?
Something like that. But like Mary said, we were next door in the hotel, and it was a case of walk out the hotel, a few steps, and then you went through the gate, the ratchet gate, as you showed your ticket. And we were in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we had 3 days there, didn't we? And I could have stayed there even longer, just to be sat with that atmospheric feeling that, you know, what are you doing?
I didn't do anything.
Well, you can see that this is an early morning shot, and there's not many people in there. The mist is down in the hills and so on. So to be there, and then later in the day it starts to get a bit busier. So there again is Huayna Picchu in the background.
People actually go up that. You can go out a gate at the back.
You've got a book. They let 100 people climb that mountain each day if you buy a ticket.
It's very hairy.
Well, we'll see that in a minute.
Oh.
But again, this is a settlement part. You can see all the buildings and so on. And on the previous one, it showed the terraces. And I think there were over 100 terraces down the hillside so far on both sides, where they grow their crops and so on. Totally self-sufficient. When Hiram Bingham, he wouldn't have found this had somebody not mentioned that there were some ruins up the hill. And when he went up, it was absolutely covered in trees.
Yeah.
You know, it was absolutely invisible, almost unknown, forgotten. And he started chopping a few trees down and realised what an entity it was. And from then on, it's obviously been improved, and a few places have been mended.
They've actually uncovered only a small fraction of what is actually there. There's so much more to find.
And then you get these shots like this. I mean, all right, the people under the the body of the llama are a bit thing, but it's
Need a bit
looking
of
over
photo-
a sheer drop, and it is a sheer drop. It's right down to the Urubamba at the bottom.
Yeah, bit of Photoshop
And
needed
of course,
on that
you
one.
know, everywhere you go, you get a Japanese or a Chinese tourist
Mm.
that gets in your shot. And, you know, I was photographing the llama. And again, you can see this is looking back to Machu Picchu, and Machu Picchu is the mountain going away on the top right corner above that, the apex of the roof. It just goes up beyond there. So that's Machu Picchu itself. And when you go on the Inca Trail, you actually come along that top,
That ridge.
that ridge, and then come through what's called the Sun Gate, and that's when you get the full view, that view, the classic view. When you've been on the Inca Trail, it's sort of like the crown at the end. So this is if you wanted to go up Huayna Picchu, which is the one in there, this was the way up. Now, it cost you quite a bit of money to pay to get a ticket to go up. But if you look at, you know, health and safety, there's no, she's just on a ladder. She's not hooked on or anything. And on the right hand side, the big picture, it's just steps. You've got
There
a
is a
rope.
rope.
You've got a rope to hold on to, but you're looking halfway, 3/4 away up the mountain, looking down. Whew, dear me. We didn't. Well, we never got the chance to pay. We never thought about it, but
No.
I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah, so this was our hotel. You can see the ruins are still up on the hill at the back. And this was our room. The doors opened, well, they left them up actually, and those were our little patios and things. But we got a couple of nice chestnut-breasted coronet, another little hummingbird. I think there's another one as well.
She didn't have pro capture here, by the way.
No,
She
no,
didn't have
sadly
pro
not.
capture.
I would love to have got better pictures of them, but hey ho. These were all in the garden at the back of the hotel where we've just shown you. That's another one, a green and white winged hummingbird. The gardens were beautiful, the flowers.
An
were
original
just-
title for the bird.
I think
Some
you've
of you
probably-
have seen this shot.
You've probably seen that.
I took
one.
this on my iPad, to be honest. It was just happened to be there, and the nearest thing I'd got was I was reading something on the iPad, and I looked up and saw this rainbow from the hotel we were.
This was from our room.
I just dashed out and
of
took
the
it.
garden. Yeah, it was stunning. A few of the flowers that were in the garden. Maybe some of you might know what they are. In fact, I don't know whether this one's a proteus on the left, but it might be.
I don't
I'm
think
not
it's
sure.
The one on the left is a passion flower.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's not proteus.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
have a what's it? Right. So
Okay.
so we've done Machu Picchu. It's in the top left-hand corner of the map here, and we're now going to go on our final leg. We're going to come down to Cusco again, and then catch the train and come all the way down this sort of
Altiplano.
across the Altiplano, which we'll look at, to Juliaca, and then to Puno. And Puno is on the shore of Lake Titicaca.
And you can see the Andes Mountains. You follow
Yeah,
the Andes Mountains all the way down.
You can see the white bits because that's permanent snow. But so here we are. And this is Agua Calientes, and this is getting the train. It's just a single track train, one a day. One goes out and one comes back, and that's it. We went with Peru Rail.
See the llamas.
Yeah, and you can see Machu Picchu and whatever. And again, it was a 10-hour journey. This wasn't a sleeper. You got up early in the morning and you got down to Puno late at night. But they had this panorama coach, the observation coach at the back, and I just spent hours just watching the scenery go by.
You were stood outside. It was interesting seeing all the little settlements and everything on the way there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
On the way down.
Yeah, and then we got to the highest point, and I'm not sure.
That says 14,000.
Yeah, I think it's the highest point that a railway travels in the world. But anyway, it's nearly halfway, and it's called a raya. And this young lad here, I was talking about how good them and friendly people were and so on. It was take a picture with my llama, take a picture with my llama, and give me money. And Mary took the picture and he held his hand out and I put some money in his hand. He looked at it and looked at me and said, "Not enough." So I said, "Well, I'm sorry, that's all you're going to get." But he wasn't very happy. I just like the way, you know, here's a husband taking his wife out for the day.
I'm not sure what's on her back. I don't know. It's a baby.
It could be. Oh, no, that's how they carry stuff, isn't it? She's probably going to Asda or something like that. And she's got her Asda bag on
There's
her back.
no Asda.
But this is the Altiplano. This is the high plain. And we aren't yet totally in the Andes. These are the foothills of the Andes and so on. But it's a very flat plain that runs right the way, almost the way to Puno. So the train's not going up and down, it's just chuntering along.
Yeah, you're
and now
beginning
you
to get
start
the
to see.
Andes now. You can see the snow on the top of the mountains. The scenery was, I don't know what the yellow is. I wished I'd found out.
Could be rape.
I don't know.
And
Yeah.
this is, some of them went by truck. This was the road. You could travel by the road all the way, but that would take you a lot longer and you'd have to stop off. But this was the rail track, you know, and this is, I now know what the word infinity means and where it is, because it was just straight rail track forever.
Yeah, parallel lines did go
But these were the tour buses, and when the people got out to go and stretch their legs, have a drink or whatever, they went down into the river and washed them.
Give it a wash.
So this was a Peruvian car wash. Again,
It's a walled settlement,
yeah,
isn't it?
it is. But it's just, you know, but if you notice this very long, tall radio mast that goes up. So
Yeah.
although they are a long way away from what you would call modern civilization, they can still keep in touch with things. And you'll see that later on. You know, one of the most remotest parts, the most important thing in the house was the TV.
I just like this one. It just shows the scenery.
And there we are again. There's the railway lines going away to infinity almost.
Yeah, parallel lines do come together.
Yeah. Now some of you will have seen these pictures in camera because we used them a few years back now. But this is going into Puno, and you actually, this is the market in Puno. And what they do is they use the railway track as their market. And as the train comes in, they simply move some of their stalls to the side. And as the train goes, they just move it back again. But some of them don't even bother moving. So you see these oranges down the front here, the train's just gone over those and they've been left there. And
So where's that on the back?
And then as soon as the train's gone, the bus goes across the back and everything just fills in again as if there's no train track there. So that's the market. And if you wanted to read a book, then you'd stop the train, get off, pick up a book, run along the side of the train and get back on again. But they didn't move these, they were just left in the railway lines. It wasn't worth moving things like that. I found that really, you know, I find it really, you know, just the activity, just the hustle and the bustle, and you know, everybody's moving in their own little spheres, but they're all partly interacting. You know, I just love that sort of crowded environment where you look at people and think, where have you been? What are you doing? Where are you going? I just love being among it almost. Right, do you want to go on now? This was Mary's. I want to go to Mary, this said.
Did I?
You did.
Right, okay. Uros. These islands are in Lake Titicaca and they're made of reeds, reed islands.
Papyrus type thing.
Yeah, papyrus type things. In fact, everything you can see there is made of reeds. And the people live on these islands.
But they float. The islands float.
They're pretty well, don't float away. They
No.
sort of stay where they are. Oops, I've gone too fast. Oh, hang on. keep pressing the wrong one. My mouse wanders over. Okay, we'll go back. And so this is the village actually on top of the island. These what look like beds, they're not beds, they're what people put their wares on, and you buy things. I bought some cushions and some various things because they do some amazing embroidery. You see how colourfully they are dressed.
She bought a carpet in China. But what
You've said that.
I know. But what they do is, as the reeds grow around the edge of the island, each year they just simply cut down some reeds and lay them on top. And as the reeds below rot away, they replace them. So I would think they're probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 feet thick. But they are just floating on water. There's no anchorage or anything.
Now this is what really got me, because apparently our guide told us that every year, some children fall into the lake. There's nothing to stop them. There's a few reeds around the edge, but they can just wander off to the side. You can see these are quite tiny, little, quite small children. And if they fall in the lake, that's it, they drown. And I just found that really hard. That little boy in the blue, I think he was a little boy, is just putting one of the things for sale back on the table.
It's a little boat.
A little boat, one of the reed boats.
Or a model,
but I found that really hard. The Lake Titicaca is the deepest navigable lake in the world.
And the highest navigable lake.
And the highest navigable lake in the world. But the water comes straight off the Andes mountains and is, well, freezing. Yeah, they just fall in and drown.
So having left the Uros Islands, then where we got to on a papyrus boat with a man with a big oar at the back, sort of drawing circles with his oar, we then got on a cabin cruiser and went across to a proper island on Lake Titicaca called Sun Island. And it was the home of the Inca emperors. It was where they went. This man Pachacutic.
Oh yeah, here they go.
These are called
Mr.
the
and
Inca
Mrs.
steps. Yeah, these Inca steps, these have been here sort of for 10, 15 centuries. And there's lots of them in there.
Yeah, right. So these steps, it was very steep. It was still quite high. It was very hot. And Bob and I were the last ones of our group up. And when we got to the top, eventually, we got a clap. Everybody clapped us because we'd actually made it to the top.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have missed it. It's an amazing place. And so that's one of the views from the top. Somebody's cooking space. So beautiful. It's an amazing habitat. All these are the men. You know, the men rule. The women follow on behind. This is the main market square. And the men actually knit. And they have their cloaks on with a hood at the back, and they have their wool in their hood, comes over their shoulder, and they walk about knitting. And I got a couple of headbands, knitted headbands that go around you.
She bought a carpet in China.
And they're all self-sufficient. You know, they live on the island, they look after each other, they don't have...
It is the nearest thing you would come to perfect communism.
Yeah.
Everybody has their role. Everybody looks after everybody else. Their community share. They worship together. They live on this island.
They grow what they need to eat.
There is no head man or prime minister or anything like that. Whatever decisions are made, these elders, these people just get together and they agree on a decision, and that is what is implemented. So there's nobody there there's no one person telling anybody what to do. So if coronavirus has struck there, then there's going to be no one person like Mr. Johnson saying, you can't go out unless you've got a mask on. It's got to be a communal decision. And these were the houses on Sun Island.
We actually had a meal there.
It was quinoa.
Yeah.
And this is what?
7 years.
7, 8 years ago. I'd never heard of quinoa. or quinoa, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's a posh word.
Mm.
But she put this soup down, and phew, dear, was it hot? It was like drinking watered pepper. Anyway, that's by the by. But you couldn't go on the island freely unless the shaman had blessed you. And we were sat there, and he would come round with like a gourd on a stick, hollowed out, and he would shake the gourd, and the water would just lightly sprinkle onto you. And he blessed us to eternity. So
Not quite sure what
I'm
that
not
meant.
quite sure
but
what
hey.
that meant or where it will be, but we've got the shaman on our side.
Yeah, these two little charmers. Again, this little one with the red skirt on, she we gave her some money, what most people were giving her, and she was quite dogmatic. You had to give her more than that before you could get a picture of her. But
Or make a smile.
yeah,
I mean, you know, they look like little old women, don't they? They
Yeah.
almost look like grannies.
I'm not quite sure. I don't know what that one was doing. She didn't have
I
an
think
animal.
she's selling.
with
I
her.
think that one is stood
She's
with
got,
some
yeah, things
wares
to
to
sell.
sell, and Mum's just sent her down there and said, "Go and fleece the tourists with a bit of a smile."
I just wished I'd got better photographs now. I'll position them better so that they were right. Oh, would you believe these are potatoes?
Yeah.
Black potatoes.
I like the
Red
green.
ones?
I like the green and purple ones.
Green and purple.
But you wouldn't buy those at Tesco, would you? They
We
wouldn't
were
let you,
actually on a-
wouldn't let you have those.
We were actually on a bus at this point, and the driver or our guide got off and came back and showed us these. So those are the potatoes. And those are corn, sweet corn. Oh, so many different. And as we were coming along on that train down the Altiplano, you could see that it was just an expanse of nothing with the odd house dotted here and there. And then you'd find a little acre, maybe half acre of potatoes just growing in the middle of nowhere, or a little patch of corn, which obviously belonged to somebody, but they weren't fenced. You know, somebody would just come out and tend them, and we were just amazed by it, all the different colours and shapes of the thing. Right, so this is when we're getting right down now to Bolivia. And,
we entered from Panama, and we had to leave via Bolivia. Right. So anyway, you carry on, but it's important to know we have to leave by Bolivia because
yeah, there's no major airport in the bottom of Peru, so we had to get into Bolivia to do this. And you can see these are the Andes in the background, I think covered in snow all year round.
And if you wanted to cross the river with your bus, that was how you did it. I like the rainbow on the side of the bus. It's like, you know, but it's got.
There's one going that way. There's one coming this way.
You can see it actually has got the Bolivian flag on that one. So you cross this area of water to get into Bolivia.
I think half of Lake Titicaca is from Peru, and the other half, the southern half, is Bolivia.
Did you see the Bolivian Navy, Bob?
No. Have they got one?
Only two landlocked countries to have a navy.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah.
So where do they keep their boats?
On Lake Titicaca.
Mm-hmm. And again, the Andes.
Yeah, we were right down up against the Andes by now. Again, but it's just scattered living, as you can see. Now, this is the story. We have to go back in the story here, don't we, a bit? Well, when we came in from Panama and we came into Peru, we came through customs and we got our passport stamped, and everything was fine.
Every hotel we went to, they all wanted your passport.
Passport, yeah, no problem, sir. Thank you, sir. Right. So now we get to leave Peru, and one guy looks at our passports and says, "You've got the wrong date on your passport. You've got last year's date." So I don't know what had happened, but when we got stamped into Peru, we actually got stamped in on the day of the year before. So by the time we got to here to leave Peru, we were illegal aliens. Our passport said we'd been in Peru for a year and 10, 12 days or whatever. and there was a mix-up, and well, I didn't think we was letters.
And we thought, he said, if you don't pay me,
Yeah, you have to pay to get out.
so many, whatever, I can't remember the currency of Peru now, but if you don't pay, you'll get stopped at the airport. You won't be able to
You won't be
leave.
able to leave the country.
So we handed over the money quick.
I don't know
And
whether
this
it was
is-
done deliberately,
I don't know. I think it was a scam.
but
I think the man at the Peru airport who stamped it is probably in league with the chap at this one, and he stamped it.
but this is the border crossing to Bolivia.
So
and
how we got off the bus. These are all our suitcases.
There
That's
is-
mine on the top
the
there, the
brown
brown
one is Mary's. That's been round the world. That one.
And you literally walk across the border
If
into
you're lucky,
Bolivia.
if you're lucky, you walk across the border. But there are guards there with guns and so on, because going into Bolivia
Yeah.
is a bit more, what shall we say, restrictive than being in Peru.
Mm.
So here I am, and I'm walking up. Mary's in front of me.
So
Peru's behind us. Bolivia's in front of us. But these are Bolivian motorbikes. These are Bolivian police motorbikes
Mm.
on the left.
it says if I ought to have just left that in because that says Peru.
Yeah, it says
just there,
Peru, it
doesn't
says
it?
Peru, doesn't it? And Bolivia is totally different. Totally different. Look at them. These women, they wouldn't let you. Well, they couldn't stop you photographing, but they covered their faces, and all the women wear bowler hats. Yeah.
Peru do a lot actually.
Well, they do sort of wear a bowlery type hat. Yeah, you're right. But as soon as they saw you with the camera, up went the bowler hat in front
yeah,
of the
they
face.
didn't want to be
No,
photographed.
No.
Which was fine.
Which,
you know, it's
fair
their
enough.
choice, isn't it?
We still took a photograph
Yeah.
just for the
Well,
just for the hell of it.
Mm.
And this is probably the last one. It's I don't know really why we put it in. I think it was just to say, wherever you go, there are people entertaining at the street and so on. So
I
I
just
think
think he makes a nice photograph.
that is the last one. It is indeed.
Oh,
So
so
what
that's
is
the
it?
end of the tour,
That's it.
folks. Sorry, we've ended a bit earlier.
Thank you very much.
Is there
Most
anybody still
interesting.
there?